Okay, so now let's proceed to qualitative research. First, let me define what qualitative research is. When we talk about qualitative research, it involves collecting and analyzing non-numerical data to understand concepts, opinions, or experiences. It can also be used to gather in-depth insights into a problem or generate new ideas for research. Qualitative research is also based on some quality or characteristics rather than on some quantity or measured value. It can be observed but not measured numerically. Now let's proceed to the goals of qualitative research. We have exploration, description, and interpretation. For the exploration, the goal is to identify patterns, themes, hunches, and initial models that provide an initial understanding of this phenomena. For example, you might want to explore what happens in an inclusion classroom when both the regular education and special education teachers are co-teaching. Next is description. It is the heart of qualitative research. It aims at gaining deep understanding of a specific organization or event. With qualitative research, data is not described through numerical values or patterns, but through the use of descriptive context. So these patterns could be the amount of time spent in an activity, or the type of activity and the method of communication that is being employed. For example, you might want to describe what are the perspective of regular education teachers about inclusion of children with special needs in the regular classroom. Next is interpretation. The goal of interpretation is to make sense of what goes on, to reach out for understanding or explanation through exploration, description, and interpretation. Actually, interpretation is at the heart of qualitative research because qualitative research is concerned with meaning and the process of meaning making. Furthermore, qualitative data never speaks for itself and it needs to be given meaning by the researcher. For example, you want to make an interpretation on how was the kinesthetic teaching and learning strategies in the language art classes affected the learning experiences of junior high school students who had been diagnosed with ADHD. Now let us proceed on how to do a qualitative research. There are 5 things that you need to do. You need to create a research question, decide for the method to be used, collect the needed data, analyze those data, and publish your study or research. First is the research question. You need to construct or create your research question. And it is also important that you look at the literature. Who has been writing and who has been studying these questions that is being asked. Next is the method. So research methods are the strategies, the processes, or techniques utilized in the collection of data or evidence for analysis in order to uncover new information or create better understanding of a topic. And there are sources of qualitative data. These are interviews, focus groups, observations, and content analysis. So let's look at the interviews. Okay. For interviews, there are conversations with one or more participants, and we explore their thoughts, their feelings, and their opinions about a particular phenomena. And usually, we do an interview. And when we do an interview, we record it. So we have an audio recording of that interview. Then we will transcribe it. So we get a written transcript that we can use for our analysis. Okay, next is focus groups. Another source that we can have from something that we hear is through the focus groups. In focus groups, you've got more than one person in the room, wherein you allow these people to interact with each other. So you can really have a rich source of ideas that you can develop. It must be also be moderated by the researcher. The next source of qualitative data is from something that you see, such as observational data. It is in a way of observing people directly, or the researcher would then take field notes or have some other way of recording what it is that they have observed with their research. Researcher can also be a participant in the activity, but they don't need to be. The subjects may or may not know that they are also being observed. Next is the content analysis. The source of qualitative data is from something you read, such as the content and document analysis. In content analysis, this can be a recorded communication that can be analyzed, such as facts and figures, straight out of the documents. So you can also complement that with an interview data. So you speak to people to get their thoughts, their opinions, their insights into these facts. Next is data collection. Data collection is the process of gathering and measuring information on variables of interest in an established systematic fashion that enables one to answer the stated research questions, test hypotheses, and evaluate outcomes. In collecting the needed data, you need to get the right participant in the study. But it is important that you get first the consent from the participants. Or in case of content analysis, you need to get permission to use and analyze those documents. And if you will be doing an interview or focus groups, you might want to develop an interview guide. This is basically a document that outlines the general themes that you are going to explore. Next, the information that you can extract from the participants with respect to their thoughts and feelings is important. But you need an additional information about them too. So in other words, you need to describe your participants, such as their age, gender, whether male or female, and the place where they came from, or their educational background. So this will give context to the answers that they have given. And also, you might want to understand and describe the cohort of people who decided not to decline to participate in your study. This may be important. Why? It's because there might be a systematic difference between people that did participate and the people who did not participate. The last one is the time and place. So, you need to find a time that works for your participants and also that works for you. Why? So, nobody feel rushed during this interview or focus group. You also need to find a place or venue that is quiet, a place that is going to be free from interruptions or distractions. Next is analyzing data. Data analysis is the process of systematically applying the logical techniques to describe and illustrate, condense and recap, and evaluate data. An essential component of ensuring data integrity is the accurate and appropriate analysis of research findings. So, there are things that you need to know. Okay? So the most important thing is that you are transparent about methods you use in analyzing data. and how it is that you've got to conclusions that you draw from the data that you've got. Once your data has been prepared, a popular method of analyzing qualitative data is something that we call as thematic analysis. So there are three basic procedure used in qualitative data analysis, and these are: first, preparing and organizing data. So you need to make observations about something that is unknown, unexplained, or new. The second thing is reducing data into theme. You need to hypothesize an explanation for those observations. And lastly, you need to present the data in the narrative or graphic form. Make a prediction of outcomes based on your hypothesis. Formulate a plan to test your prediction. And then the last thing that you need to do is to publish your study or research. Communicate your findings either in a presentation or to write a paper depending on the discipline within which you might find yourself. There may be different styles and formats that papers written in that discipline. But usually the basic things that you need to prepare are introduction, methods, results, discussion, and conclusion. Now let's proceed to the types of qualitative research. My dear co-teachers, there are different types of qualitative research, but I will be focusing only on these five commonly used qualitative research, and these are the case study, grounded theory, ethnography, phenomenology, and the narrative research. So the first one is case study. A case study involves a deep understanding through multiple types of data sources. Case studies can be explanatory, exploratory, or describing an event. It looks at a single example of something in a lot of detail, so it might explore a process, event, or an individual, or an experience. But the point is, it goes into a lot of detail for the single entity. So for example, you might want to know how a specific or particular hospital dealt with the COVID-19 pandemic, or you want to know how a principal of a specific public school dealt with the COVID-19 pandemic. With regards to the characteristic of the case study, it investigates a contemporary cases. It also involves in-depth study of a particular situation. Case study is also useful for testing scientific theories, whether they actually work in the real world. Case study is also useful in researching issues related to sustainability and institutional systems. It also answers a question that sought to explain the presumed causal links in real-life interventions. And with regards to the elements of case study, so these are problems, steps, results, challenges, beyond results, and lessons learned. So it is essential to identify what the problem is, what was done with regards to activities, the interventions, and the inputs, were, by whom, and for whom, and what were the results of our intervention. Then you need to know also what are the challenges or the difficulties that you have encountered. You need to write those things. And then, are the results mentioned above sustainable? Why or why not? And then you need to also have these questions in your mind. What lessons were learned? Okay. Next is the grounded theory. Grounded theory looks to provide an explanation or theory behind the events. You use primarily interviews and existing documents to build a theory based on the data. When you discover a new theory to underlie your study at the time of data collection and analysis, then it is a grounded theory. Grounded theory is different. Why? It is different because the output of your research is a theory which must be grounded in your data. That is usually the opinions and thoughts of your research subjects. The use of grounded theory are to explore new domains and also interpret. The strength of this research is that it brings data into focus and depth. It builds theory that is descriptive, abstract, and powerful. For example, you want to interview people to get a general theory as to how they react in this time of pandemic. Or you also want to analyze a certain situation or occurrences and then had made you create a formula or equation or theory regarding the occurrence. Or another example is that you might want to generate theory on how parents coped with difficult times when caring for a chronically ill child. Another explanations and discussions for this grounded theory is that it says that it is a qualitative strategy of inquiry in which the researcher derives a general abstract theory of process, action, or interaction grounded in the views of participants in the study. Grounded theory is also essential to identify what the problem is. It is a systematic methodology in the social sciences involving the discovery of theory through analysis of data. Okay, so I have given already that example. Now let's proceed to ethnography. Ethnography has its roots in cultural anthropology, where the researchers immerse themselves within a culture. So, when we talk about ethnography, this study people in their own setting over a period of time. It is the systematic study and documentation of human activity without imposing a prior interpretation of it through immersion in the environment of it and observation of the routine tasks that comprise it. And also, it is a systematic recording of human cultures. So rather than studying the people from the outside, you learn from people from the inside. This is best for cultural anthropology, sociology, business, and organizational psychology. So, for example, you want to look at how students in the native tribes in an online setting during the COVID-19 pandemic. Or you might want to understand the dialect spoken by a tribe in the mountain and their way of life. And another example is that you might want also to look at how teachers in an online classroom during the COVID-19 pandemic. So let's look at the characteristics of ethnography. Ethnography is contextual. So research is carried out in the context in which the subjects normally live and work. Next, it is unobtrusive. The research avoids manipulating the phenomena under investigation. It is longitudinal. The research is relatively long. It is collaborative. It involves the participation of stakeholders other than the researchers. It is interpretative. It carries out interpretative analysis of data. And lastly, it is organic. There is interaction between questions, hypothesis, and data collection or interpretation. With regards to the methodological principle that it use, it make use of naturalism, understanding, and discovery. So let's look at it closely. Naturalism, the aim of social research is to capture the character of naturally occurring human behavior. And understanding, if we are able to explain human actions effectively, we gain an understanding of the cultural perspective on which they are based. And then discovery. Another feature of ethnographic thinking is a conception of the research process as inductive or discovery based, rather than being limited to the testing of explicit hypotheses. Now, let's proceed to phenomenology. In phenomenology, you use a combination of methods such as conducting interviews, reading documents, watching videos, or visiting places and events to understand the meaning participants place on whatever's being examined. It is about how people find their experience meaningful. It explores the human experience around a particular phenomenon. A phenomenon can be an object, an experience, an event, or an idea. It also tries to extract the essential features of experiences and the essence of what we experience. So it examines human experiences through the descriptions provided by the people involved. For example, how's the students experience and how do they understand the new normal setup of teaching and learning during this time of COVID-19 pandemic? Another example is that you want to know the experience of a person from a typhoon, a flood, or earthquake. Like, for example, you want a study on the experiences of Typhoon Ulysses victims in selected area in Rizal and Marikina. Okay, so again, so phenomenology is a human experiences through the descriptions provided by people involved. With regards to its features, it helped in raising an understanding of the relationship between the states of individual consciousness and social life. Next is the objective. To trace out precisely the experiences of people and generate theories of model of phenomenon being studied. And then with regards to its characteristic, it opposes naturalism. It justifies knowledge with reference to awareness of a substance itself. And then the last type of qualitative research that I will be discussing is the narrative research. The narrative approach weaves together a sequence of events, usually from just one or two individuals to form a cohesive story. So, in the narrative research, researchers describe the lives of individuals and write the narratives of individual experiences. Some examples of these are autobiography, biography, personal accounts, personal narrative, narrative interviews, and even the personal documents. Uh, an example for this is stories about difficulties the novice teachers have in meeting diverse needs of students in this new normal setup of teaching and learning. Narrative research is considered also a study of individuals' life experiences told to the researchers or obtained in documents. It also involves gathering data through the collection of stories, reporting individual experiences, and discussing the meaning of those experiences for the individual. The narrative research also makes use of questionnaires, interviews, and surveys. Now let's proceed to the difference between quantitative and qualitative research. For the quantitative research, it is expressed in numbers. The qualitative research are being expressed in words. So for the quantitative research, it is more of math analysis or statistical analysis. While for the qualitative research, it it's more on summarizing, categorizing, and interpreting. For quantitative research, it tests hypotheses. For the qualitative research, it formulates hypotheses. And also, in quantitative research, it needs larger sample size. For the qualitative research, it just needs a smaller sample size. Okay. Now, let's look closely on the uh, difference of qualitative and quantitative research in terms of the first one is focus. Uh, the focus of qualitative research is more of quality or the meaning of experience. For the quantitative research, it focuses on quantity, frequency, and magnitude. With regards to philosophical roots of qualitative research, it is based on constructivism and interpretivism. For the philosophical roots of quantitative research is positivism. In terms of the goals of investigation, qualitative research goal is to understand, describe, and discover. While for the goals of investigation of quantitative research is to predict, control, confirm, and to test. With regards to the design characteristics, the characteristic of qualitative research is flexible, evolving, and emergent, while the quantitative data, it is more of structured and predetermined. With regards to the data collection, in qualitative research, researcher is also serve as an instrument. For quantitative research, the data collection make use of external instruments such as the tests and surveys. So consider qualitative research design if you don't like statistics, if you hate numbers, and if you are terrible at math, but you do have an affiliation with language and writing. If you are not good in stats and quants, then choose qualitative design for your research. But if it is the other way around, then go for quantitative design or research. Take note, it is natural and understandable that nobody can be good at everything. People develop and possess different expertise, focuses, and preferences in terms of research and research methodologies. One important thing that we need to remember is that methodological choices we make in terms of how to investigate and answer a question depend on what question is. It is not about what methodological approach you prefer. It is about what approach is logically required by your research question. So how do you know if qualitative research is right for your study? Consider the nature of what you want to study, determine what you want to know about your study, and be clear about your goals. So let me end my discussions with this quote. Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. There is nothing wrong in playing your strength and staying inside your comfort zone. There's a reason why it is called a comfort zone. When we are in it, we are in control. When we step out of it, we tend to lose control. We take risks. We make mistakes. So don't believe the hype that you can only learn and grow when you are out of your comfort zone. That's not true. If we look at highly successful entrepreneurs, business people, politicians, artists, writers, even players, whatever, none of them achieved their success from outside their comfort zone or by doing things that they are not good at. So you need to play on your strengths. You do what you are good at and you improve it and then get better and even better at it. With that, thank you and God bless us all.